The Gambler by Fyodor Dostoevsky, retold by Catherine Sklerova. Chapter 7. Probably all over Europe hotel landlords and managers show a suit to their rich visitor by themselves. It may also be said that these landlords and managers seldom make a mistake, so our landlord chose the best suit for the grandmother. It consisted of 4 rooms, including a bathroom, a servant's rooms, and a separate room for her maid. In fact, during this previous week, the suite had been occupied by a famous Grand Duchess. The hotel manager immediately explained the circumstances to the new occupant as an excuse for raising the price of these apartments. The landlord wheeled the grandmother to every room in turn by himself. The manager walked respectfully by their side. Everybody took the grandmother for a person of great importance and great wealth. Her look, her pile of unnecessary trunks, and many servants helped to increase her prestige, while her sharp tone, direct questions, upright figure, and commanding manner completed the general respect in which she was held. She inspected her suit with a great care. Then she asked some questions about the suit in French. Her language was so bad that sometimes the landlord and the manager could hardly understand her. Nevertheless, they did their best to answer the old lady's questions. For example, on one occasion she stopped before a picture which had a mythological subject. "Who is in this, in the portrait?" asked the grandmother. "I think it is a countess," replied the hotel landlord. "How do you know that?" The hotel landlord didn't know what to say. He was confused. "You live here, yet you cannot say anything for certain. And why is the picture here at all? I don't like it." The landlord was still silent. "A fool," said the grandmother. "Well, what about this carpet in my bedroom? What is the value of it? Where had it been manufactured?" The landlord promised her to make inquiries. "How stupid these people are," said the grandmother. At that moment she looked at her bed attentively. The hotel landlord opened the bed for her inspection. "Good, it contains no bugs," said the grandmother. "This bed is too large and luxurious for an old woman like myself." Finally the grandmother was satisfied with her suit and agreed to stay there. The 2 men left her suit with great relief. I waited for the grandmother in her suit. Thus I saw the whole scene of her inspection. When the landlord and the manager were gone, she said to me seriously, "Alexis Ivanovich, you can visit me whenever you are not teaching your pupils. I am no longer in the general service. I live in the hotel on my own account." "Why so?" she asked me in surprise. "Because 2 days ago," I said, "I spoke to the baron and the baroness without a proper accent. The baron didn't like my speech or manners. He complained about it to the general, who yesterday dismissed me from his staff." "What? How could he dismiss you? He's a fool. What did you do next?" "I wanted to challenge the baron to a duel, but the general protested against such a decision." "Nonsense. They treated you so unfairly. Anyway, I want you and Potapych to come with me to the casino." "Where is this casino, Alexis Ivanovich?" I explained to her that the casino was not far from the park. Then she asked me whether there were many saloons inside, whether many people played in them, whether they won often, and whether the game was managed according to fixed rules. I said to her that the best way would be for her to go and see it for herself, because my description would be too long and difficult for her. "Then take me straight to the casino," she said. "What? You have not rested after your journey at all, grandmother," I said in surprise. "I do not feel tired," she said seriously. "I have been sitting still for 5 days. Convey me to the casino. Can my servants Potapych and Martha come with us?" "I do not think so," I replied. "They would not admit them to the casino with you, madam. Anyway, I can ask them to make a favor for you." "Nonsense. They are my servants. They cannot turn them out. They are only human beings like the rest of us. They have been traveling for a week with me. But, after all, why should I take the whole party with me? I will go into the saloon with you, Alexis Ivanovich. They can wait for me at the door of the casino." I could do nothing but to fulfill her wish. Her servants conveyed her downstairs. The general and his companions met us in the hall of the hotel. They were about to have a walk in the park. When they heard our destination, they exchanged glances with one another. The general was growing nervous, and the whole party was showing evident signs of confusion. After a short pause, they all agreed to accompany the grandmother to the casino, where very likely she would perform some eccentricities in the public too. Yet, on their own initiative, they escorted her to the casino. On our way to the casino, the general did his best to persuade his mother to come back to the hotel. Potapych and Martha accompanied the grandmother as well. "Why should I rest?" said the old lady. "I feel good. "I've been sitting still on the train for 5 days." "But mother," began the general. "Are you ashamed to go with me to the casino?" cried the old lady. "Stay in the hotel then." "A pretty general you are. You all can go back to the hotel. I will go and see roulette only with Alexis Ivanovich as my escort." The crier strongly insisted that everyone ought to accompany her to the casino. Everyone agreed with him except the general, who still tried to stop his mother. The distance to the casino was about a half a mile. Our road led us through the park until we reached the square in front of the casino. As a matter of fact, the spectacle of a person who was unable to walk didn't excite any surprise in Roulettenberg. Yet it was clear that the general had a great fear about his mother's behavior in the casino. Paulina and Mademoiselle Blanche walked on the other side of the wheeled chair. Mademoiselle Blanche was smiling at the grandmother and was treating her in an agreeable way. As for Paulina, she had to answer the endless questions such as, "Who is this old gentleman? Is the town large? Are the gardens big there? What is the name of this hill? What is this strange building?" and so forth. The general walked beside Mademoiselle Blanche. Potaphych and Martha walked behind the old lady's chair. As for de Griers, he didn't speak. He walked silently by the general's side. Also, I saw that de Griers and Mademoiselle Blanche were exchanging glances at intervals. We entered the casino in triumph. Porters and footmen watched us with curiosity. The grandmother ordered for her chair to be wheeled to the gaming tables immediately. She asked many questions concerning everything in the casino. Finally, we reached the gaming salon. The grandmother's entry into the roulette salon produced a deep impression on the public. There were about 200 gamblers around the gaming tables. They stood in several rows. Chairs were placed around the tables, but few players took their seats because to stand allowed a better opportunity for staking and calculation. Behind the first row, there was a second and third row of the people waiting their turn to stake. Sometimes players in the second row stretched a hand through the first row to make their stakes. Even players in the third row leaned forward to stake impatiently. After 5 or 10 minutes, the game was over and money appeared at one end or the other of the table. The police of the casino watched the players attentively in the corners of the gaming salon. Their duty was to decide disputes at the gaming tables as they arose. Big disputes would immediately come to an end, thanks to the police. The police also looked out for their thieves who simply walked in the roulette salons and stole money from the pockets of excited players. A thief could approach a roulette table discreetly, stay for a while, and then grab someone else's winnings. A thief could only take a small sum in order not to attract the attention of the players. If the thief was detected, the police had a right to take money back and expel him from the casino. The grandmother looked at all this with great curiosity. Other games interested her little. She preferred roulette. Soon she told us that she wanted to see the game closer. The footman found a vacant place for the old lady among the crowd in some mysterious way. The grandmother was wheeled to the center of the table, next to the main croupier. The visitors who were not playing moved closer to the table in order to see the old lady among the gamblers. The croupier's hopes rose high. Surely such an unusual player was about to do something out of the ordinary. An old lady of 75 years who desired to play was not an everyday phenomenon. I moved closer to the table and stopped by the grandmother's side. The general, Paulina, the Griers, Mademoiselle Blanche, Potaphych, and Martha remained somewhere in the background among the crowd. At first, the old lady began to watch the gamblers. Especially she turned her attention to a young woman who had won 40,000 francs, which were lying before him on the table in a heap of gold and banknotes. She was very excited. Her hands were shaking. She staked without any sort of calculation as she kept winning and winning his gains. From time to time, other gamblers would hand him part of their winnings to let her stake for them. A young Pole stood beside her who kept whispering something to him at intervals. Probably he was telling him what to stake and directing his play. The players never looked at the Pole. Anyway, the attention of the crowd turned fully to the grandmother. She watched the player for a few minutes. "Go and tell him to stop playing," she said to me. "He must take his money with him and go home. Presently she will be losing everything that she has won." I told her that it was not polite to disturb a player with warnings. "How provoking," she remarked. "The young man will be ruined. What a fool he is." She turned away and didn't look at him anymore. She looked around attentively. A young lady with a dwarf caught her attention. The young lady was playing roulette. I didn't know that young lady or the dwarfs beside her, but I had noticed her in the saloon on previous occasions. She entered the casino every day at 1 o'clock precisely. She always departed at 2 o'clock. Thus she played always for exactly 1 hour. She was well known in the casino. She always had a seat provided for her. She would begin to play calmly and coolly, and after much calculation she would stake and mark down the figures in pencil on the paper. She tried to work out a system according to which the odds might group themselves. She always staked the gold coins. She would lose about 3,000 francs a day, but not more. After 1 hour she would depart calmly. I explained this to the grandmother. "This woman is not losing," said the grandmother. "Who is she? Do you know her name?" "She is a French woman, I believe." "Unfortunately, I do not know her name." "Oh, I see. Now explain to me the meaning of each round in the game, and the way in which I ought to stake," she said to me. I began to explain the meaning of all the combinations in roulette, red and black, odd and even, the different values in the system of numbers, and so on. She listened to me very attentively and asked no questions. She was very pleased with my explanation. "But what is zero?" she asked. "Just now I heard the croupier called out zero, and why does he rake in all money that is on the table? What does zero mean?" "Zero is what the bank takes for himself. If the wheel stops at zero, everything lying on the table becomes the absolute property of the bank. Also, whenever the wheel begins to turn, the bank stops paying out anything. Then I will receive nothing if I staked on zero?" "No," I replied, "unless you purposely staked on zero. In this case you would receive 35 times the value of your stake." "Why 35 times?" "Because the number of chances against its occurrence is 36. "Nonsense," she cried. The old lady took her purse out of her pocket and took 10 gulden from it. "I will give you some money. Stake that on zero at once." "But zero has turned up this moment," I objected. "It may not turn up for a long time. It often happens so. Wait a little and you may have a better chance." "Nonsense. Who fears the wolf should never enter the forest. Stake, please." I did as I was told. I told her that we had lost. "What, we have lost? Then stake again." We lost a second 10 gulden, and then a third one. The grandmother could scarcely sit still in her chair. She looked at the little ball in the spinning wheel without a stop. However, the fourth 10 gulden followed the first three. When we lost it, the grandmother became very angry. She struck the table with her fist when the croupier cried out 26 instead of desired zero. "When will the zero turn up?" she cried. "I cannot breathe until I see it." "Stake 2 golden pieces this time. Stake, stake. It is not your money." I staked 2 golden pieces accordingly. The grandmother sat motionlessly, with my hand tightly clutched in hers. "Zero," called the croupier. You see, I told you," she cried to me joyfully. The croupier paid out 70 gulden to the grandmother. I handed the money to the old lady with a smile on my face. Just then the croupier's voice shouted, "Make your stakes, ladies and gentlemen." "We will be too late. Stake on zero. Stake right now," cried the grandmother. "Think a moment, grandmother. You may lose your money," I said. "You're wrong. Stake, I tell you. Stake 20 gulden at a time. I know pretty well what I'm doing. Again, again. Stake again." The old lady was shaking with excitement. I staked 20 gulden on zero. The wheel whirled around and around. I looked at her in surprise. Yet an absolute assurance of winning was shining on her face. She looked perfectly sure that zero would turn up again. At last the ball stopped. "Zero," cried the croupier. "Oh," cried the old lady. I myself was a gambler at heart. At that moment my hands and knees were shaking. Of course, that was a seldom occasion on which zero turned up more than 3 times within a dozen rounds. Everybody watched the grandmother with great attention and respect. She was paid 5,000 gulden in gold and banknotes. She was trembling from head to foot at the time. "Alexis Ivanovich, take 2,000 gulden and stake them on the red." It was useless to oppose her. I staked her money and the wheel began to whirl. "Red," cried the croupier. She had won now 8,000 gulden. "Stake 4,000 gulden on the red again," she cried. I did so. "Red," cried the croupier again. "I have won 12,000 gulden," she shouted. "Hand me my winnings. Put the gold into this purse and count the banknotes. Enough. Let's go to the hotel. Wheel my chair away."